This Mo Fortune, and I'm very excited to interview one of my favorite artists. He comes out of New Haven, CT. He raps, he makes beats, and he records himself. And I personally agree that everybody should listen to him, honestly, because he has talent. This man right here, 9 zeros. So, how did you came up with the name 9 zeros?
All right, so it was back in 2008. Originally, my artist name was Excel. So on my older music, I'm known as Excel. So around the year 2008, it was getting close to 2009, and I was going to do my third full-length album, and I was going to call the album 9 Zeros. But I liked the name so much, I decided to keep it for myself because Excel was a kind of a somewhat common name, so I felt like I had to pick something a little bit more unique, and I loved 9 Zeros so much I adopted the name for myself.
Besides Excel or 9 zeros, did you even have a name before that?
So really, I've been going by Excel since 6th grade. So yeah, so I just continued Excel from 6th grade to 19, 20 years old. And then around 2008, went with 9 zeros.
Alright. Since you're a rapper, a beat maker, and an engineer, which of those you started first?
Okay, so originally I was a beat maker. So in the beginning, I wasn't very good at writing writing songs or even recording songs. But working on beats was something that always interested me. Beats were always very, very important to me. And I had a friend named Victor. And my friend Victor, he made beats. And I loved his beats, loved his songs. And he told me I should try making beats as well. So I thought it was a great idea. So I started messing around with beats and doing a bunch of demo projects for other artists. I'll make beats for them, let them use the beats because they were better at recording at the time, and I let them see where it would go.
So, since you was a beat maker, what transition for you to being a beat maker to now becoming a full-time rapper?
Okay, so there's this thing in the business, and a lot of people, no matter whether you're doing music or you're in journalism or the workplace, a lot of people will try to get over on you, and they'll tell you that for providing them services, they will give you exposure. So when I was making beats, people would say, "Oh, I'll just tell people you made the beat," and they considered that as my reward. But a lot of times they will use my beats, they'll use my lyrics, and then I won't get the exposure I need. Even if I tell other people listening to it, yeah, I made the beat, I wrote that hook, they still wouldn't believe me because I wasn't the one on the track. So I didn't want to focus on exposure anymore, and I decided that I wanted to be heard after a certain point.
Totally understandable. So we're gonna go way back. So since you've been rapping for quite some time, what is the first song that you ever made?
Okay, so the first song that I've ever made was a song called Unload. I was in 6th grade when I wrote it. My friend Victor helped me actually get the beat for it, and it was a very funny song. It was a very funny song. Like it had the beat had like a party feel, but then we also had gunshots, like loading and gunshots on the track, especially at the very end of the track. And with it, I called the song Unload, and I was just kind of like imitating the current rap trend, because the current rap trend at the time was gangster rap. So I was imitating the gangster rap, and I was just having fun on the song, and etc. And for some reason, a lot of people were entertained by that song. It was a very funny song, but a lot of people were entertained by it. And I finally recorded it when I was in 7th grade. And from there, I had a copy of it on CD, and I would have people hear it every now and then.
Okay. I noticed that you talked about a couple of your projects. So, can you at least like name me all the projects that you've currently done so far?
Okay, so projects. So the first project. So like I mentioned before, I did a bunch of demo projects for other artists. But when I actually started doing projects myself, I originally started off helping out with a mixtape that my brother, Skeleton Key, he used to formerly go by the name of Kilo. And Skeleton Key, he was doing mixtapes with his friends, and I was audio engineering, and I was produced some of the beats every now and then. And I produced a beat for one of the other artists. I made him probably about 2 different beats. His name was Chef. So I made about 2 different beats, and then I came up with a song called They Don't Know. And I made a trap beat, and I said to Chef, hey, I made this beat for you. You know what? I already thought of a hook, so I had them hear the hook. I wrote a verse to it. I had them hear it. They heard it. They liked it. So Chef wrote a verse. AP wrote a verse. And then from there, that was, little did I know, that was only the beginning. So from there, I went on to create my first album called My Blockumentary. After I finished My Blockumentary, my second project was called DBHM, The Black Hill Mobster. So Black Hills was basically just like alternative name for a certain area that we lived in, called Beacon Avenue, and there was a lot of hills in the area, so they called them the Black Hills around in that neck of the woods. And then afterwards, I did a EP called MAE, Money Answers Everything. It was a short EP. I made about 5 or 6 songs around the time, and about 4 singles went on to the EP.
So, while you was doing this, who was you inspired by? Like, what type of rappers like inspired you along the journey that you were doing your projects?
All right, so very, very early on, growing up in the house, I would hear a lot of DMX being played in the house. So, so around in the 90s, there was like the gangster rap was hot. So the DMX, the Jay-Z was constantly, somebody was always playing that in my house growing up. So when I really started getting into lyric writing myself, I was listening to Young Jeezy and The Game. Those 2 artists are what really influenced me, because I really like their styles. And those 2 artists is what really influenced me to focus on my lyrics and work towards achieving what they achieved.
Nice. From each project that you completed, what is your personal favorite? And what is the best song on all 3 of your projects?
Alright, so my first album called My Blockumentary, which was inspired by the Games album, the documentary. So that was my own little thing, to to show what I was inspired by. It was a reference towards his album. So on that album, the lead single was a track called Who I Am. Now, when I made that single, I wanted to capture the energy from Jim Jones' song "We Fly High." So Jim Jones' song "We Fly High," I wanted to capture that energy, but I wanted to do it in my own way. So I made the track called "Who I Am," which is definitely the lead single, and that track just blew up. People heard it and they could not believe it was me, and that really inspired me to go on and make more. But I would say that my favorite track from that album, so I would say I like listening to a track called "You Already Know This." So the track "You Already Know This" is one of my favorite tracks to listen to on an album. It's actually the intro song, so it's the first song you're gonna hear on the album. So for my second project, DBHM The Black Hill Mobster, the lead single is a track called "My Hustle Don't Stop," featuring Jaquez Watkins and More Love, More Fortune, Brandon Hicks as well. So for that track, it's basically a street trap anthem, and it's really, it's at the time the song was like ahead of its time. So the general reception for the song was really great. We performed it at a school talent show, and the applause that we've gotten afterwards was very overwhelming. It was very humbling, and it was like an unforgettable moment. It was a very unforgettable moment. But I would say that my favorite track from that album, the album was like, it had more of a hardcore feel to the album. But I would say that my favorite track from the album, it's very hard to choose. But I would say my favorite track is probably the intro song called "The Black Hill Mobster." So that was definitely my favorite. It was like a very hardcore beat, and it set the theme for the entire album. And then for my third project, which was my mini album, "Money Answers Everything," that album only had 4 tracks, but my favorite track and the lead single is a track called "Dropper," which I made in 2008, and it was my biggest single for a very long time.
Okay. From each project you completed, what were the lessons along the way that you learned?
Okay, so this is a really good question. So, different lessons I have learned from this is I have learned that credit is very important. So when you're working with artists and you're working with other artists, it is super important that you receive credit where it's due. So if you made beats, exposure is not enough. You get a portion of that project. A portion of that project goes to you. If the artist is like serious about the work, and if the artist respects you, they will give you your proper credit. It's very important that you get credit for your projects. It is also important to, I would say, from a creative viewpoint, it's important to experiment. As artists, I think it is important to experiment. It might not work out for you well right away, but if you keep experimenting, find out your strengths, find out your weaknesses, and do it from the heart, which is very important, then you can and will continue to evolve as an artist. So I would say try not to be comfortable in your music. If you're too comfortable, you won't grow. Also, I would say that working on 2 albums, an EP, and releasing digital singles up to date, I would say that another important lesson is look to the future with your music. You could make music for right now, but when you make a song, think to yourself, 5 years from now, how am I gonna feel about this? 10 years from now, how am I gonna feel about this? There's too many artists that they do music and they regret their projects. They might, they might have falling outs with other artists, and then they might want to like trim the track, re-upload the track because they have these falling outs. So I would say it's important that you plan ahead with your music. It's important that you receive your credit, and it's important that you take your projects seriously enough to want to distribute them, put them out there. So yeah, those are what I would say has been important to me from these projects.
During the years, I've noticed you made like a huge genre change from hardcore rap now to mainstream pop. What made you just decide to do all this?
Yeah, that's a very important change, because when I originally started, the gangster rap was very popular. So hearing DMX, Jeezy, Game, 50 Cent, hearing all those other artists, that's what was popular at the time. But part of me, I enjoyed putting like sounds in my music that I thought sounded kind of fun, because I grew up playing video games, so I was used to hearing like techno sounds, techno and pop house sounds. So playing video games, I would enjoy those sounds. So when I would make songs, every now and then I'll throw a sound in there that I thought sounded kind of video gamey, and doing that, little did I know, I was kind of dabbling my fingers into like the electronic. And then shortly after, like a few years after I did my third project, I started listening to pop music. I started listening to Korean pop music, Japanese. It was Japanese pop first, and then I moved into Korean pop music. And I started listening to pop music. I was listening to new metal music as well. So Korn. I was listening to a lot of new metal music, and at the time I was thinking to myself, like, it would be nice if I could take elements of these other genres, new metal, pop, and electronic EDM music. I was thinking it would be nice if I could take what's in these other genres and start putting them into my songs. Now, at the time, I was on a long hiatus from it. When I did my mini album, Money Answers Everything, that's when I started trying to adapt some pop elements into it. But I didn't know that that's where I really wanted to go, that was the direction I wanted to go in. I felt it inside me, but mentally I was like, is this what I want to... I was like, what is this? Why do I want to make my music sound like this? But it was really the pop music. I had something in me wanted to reach out to this pop music. So after listening to pop songs for like almost like several years of listening to pop songs, I decided myself that I want to make some pop rap music as well. So you could have pop and you could have pop and hip hop, and you could mix it together. And when it is mixed together well, it blends very nicely. So I thought to myself, this is what I want to do. So after I was on a long hiatus from making music, I came back to music to do pop rap music.
And speaking of which, like the long hiatus, why was you in a long hiatus?
Yes, so that is a great question. So so when I was working on my projects, I was working on them on my own, and I was using computers like at the time I was a teenager, so I was really using my brother's desktop computer to make my projects. Like I did what I had to do at the time because I didn't have the funds for it. So when I was making the music on his computer, eventually my brother moved. When he moved, that limited my interaction with the songs. So from there, I just made beats for a few years afterwards, but I didn't do any more projects. I just kind of made beats and kind of fumbled around a little bit. And then shortly after, I basically pretty much retired from making stuff. At the time, I was content with what I made. And then listening to music in other genres, I was really enjoying what I was hearing at the time. And I said to myself, like, this music sounds really great to me. They're experts at this. So I basically said to myself, if I work on anything in the future, I'll eventually work on something. But for now, I'm content. But after some years went by, I realized that I wanted to take these other genres and these other influences, and I wanted to bring them over to the Western audiences, and I wanted them to hear these elements that are somewhat lacking in our musical catalog. So that's what made me come back, and that's what got me out of retirement. Pretty much, it was a quote-unquote retirement. It wasn't an actual retirement, but it was a quote-unquote retirement. So that's what got me off of that long hiatus and back into the music game.
I must say that was a very good idea, to be honest with you. Well, out of all the beats that you've done, what was your favorite one?
Whew. So I had a lot of beats that were I made a lot of I had beats that I never made songs to. And then I had beats, that did end up being a song, but it probably, wasn't the best beat. But I would say that out of all the beats I've made, the single beat that I could hold on to, that I felt like I can't live without, will actually be the Black Hill Mobster. I made that on a demo. I made that actually on a FL Studio demo at the time, and that was like my favorite beat. The beat blew me away when I was making it, and everyone who heard it, it blew them away.
Since you've done everything on your own, how long does it take you to complete a whole song?
Okay, so because I work on music myself, I produce the beat, write the song, record the song myself, and do the audio engineering. I like to take my time on these projects. In the past, I would maybe do 1 or 2 songs within just a weekend. I would mix them. I would make the beats, record, and mix them in a weekend. But that's back when I had the album mentality, when I was like, okay, there's gonna be 16 tracks. I just gotta get 16 tracks, then I'll have an album. So what I decided is, because I'm more focused on putting out digital singles these days, I decide that I usually work on a song within a month. So I give myself a month to work on a beat, write, mix, and master the song. And I usually, and I don't want to overwhelm myself, because we got other responsibilities, jobs, etc. So I don't like to overwhelm myself, and I like to take my time just in case if I get any new ideas flowing into me. So I usually work on a project for about a month. So usually I would say 2 to 4 weeks I like to spend working on new projects.
Okay. Let's get into the engineering. Were there any other artists that you recorded?
Yes, I audio engineered a lot of artists. So like I said, my brother Skeleton Key, audio. I recorded songs for him, my uncle, a bunch of his friends, my friends as well. So I would say that I've worked with probably around 20 different artists. I worked with over and mixed and recorded songs with them. Yeah.
Okay. So, what's the difference between recording yourself and recording other people?
Okay, that's an excellent question. So when I am recording myself, of course, I'm in the driver's seat. So I'm gonna be a little bit more critical of what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, and etc. And then at the same time, I gotta fix myself. So if there's something wrong, I have to fix it. So it is a little tricky doing it that way. But that's the way I prefer to do it because I know myself, and if I'm gonna fix it, I know I can fix it. And working with other artists because they're the ones recording it, I can be a little bit more laxed because it's their voice and not my voice, and then I'll just listen to it, find the best parts of it, and then give them whatever criticism or tips that I could give them to help them improve their next recording. So yeah, so when I'm doing it by myself, I kind of feel like a little bit more pressure. When I'm working with other artists, I feel a little bit less pressure, but I do want them to sound good, so I will offer them advice and tips.
Being as an independent artist, it's really hard to get your name out there. What really keeps you striving for music?
Okay, so I am an independent artist currently. I've had a couple of record labels hit me up and wanting me to join on with them, but I politely turned down the invitations, but not anything in particular with the labels themselves. But when I work on my music, I like to own credit to all my work. So that's why I like to, do things myself. But getting support from other people is a little bit difficult. Because we're in this like a cell phone era, so a lot of people are into their smartphones, and they're really like, their vision is like very narrow. So they're just kind of focused on what they're doing, and maybe like if there's like a celebrity, then they'll focus on what the celebrity's doing too. So I would say that different hurdles with being an independent artist is getting exposure, getting support, and it's difficult. It's difficult in that aspect. But when people do hear the music speaks for itself. So when they hear it, and if they give it a chance, I think they will like gravitate towards it naturally.
I talked about like your favorite beat, but do you have a meaningful song that you like?
Yo J. So yeah, Yo J.E. was a song that I made for my ex now friend, and that song was like very meaningful to me at the time. It was kind of like it was just a solo track. I didn't actually like release the track, but it was like a very meaningful song that I did back in like 2006, 2007, around then. So yeah.
Okay. During your music journey, which of your projects that you learned the most from?
The project I learned the most from was actually my recent project, Villainous. That is the project I learned the most from. I recorded the project completely different from any project I've ever recorded. I've written it differently from all the projects I've written. I've experimented with the beat, and I use things and I use techniques I learned from over the years and recently, and put it on there. So I would say Villainous is the project I learned the most from.
Okay. So how would you describe your sound now?
Okay. So my sound currently, I would say that my sound right now is a EDM. So I would say that my sound right now is like basically rap, pop, EDM put together. So I would say that it would basically be EDM with hip hop music. So currently my tracks right now are these EDM trap tracks. Villainous is a hybrid song, and the current genres I'm focusing on is pop and EDM mixed up with hip hop elements.
Besides rapping, do you have any other hobbies that you're into?
Yes, actually, yeah. So other hobbies is I would consider myself an artist in general, actually. So growing up, I used to draw a lot. I was always drawing, even while in class, even while the teacher was giving a lecture. I was just drawing comic books. So I would say that drawing, martial arts. So martial arts, especially working with like taekwondo and tricking. And so I would say that my main hobbies is like, besides working on music, I love doing martial arts. So I'm always training, I'm always exercising. So I would say that would be my biggest hobby right now: music, martial arts, gaming, and fitness stuff in general.
If I was a random stranger walking around, why would I support you, let alone buy you?
That is a very good question. That's a very good question. So, while I don't have a definitive answer for that question, what I would say is what I'm trying to bring to the table as far as the music is I'm trying to bring something a little bit different, something that I feel that people may have been missing from their playlist. So I would say that with projects these days, so kind of currently in the music trend we're in, artists are focused on their vibe. So that's why there's like these like simpler trap beats, but there's auto-tune on the tracks. So artists, they more focus on being felt. They're more focused on the vibe and the flow of the song and being felt. They're not really focusing on their words and being heard. They want you to feel their music. With my music, I focus on the lyrics, so I want you to enjoy reading it, and then I focus on the rhythm, so I want you to feel the song as well. And then I also like to focus on the beats, so I like to give you some elements in the beats that you're like, hey, I kind of like that beat, or that was kind of cool when they did that part. So I'm working hard these days, and I'm always learning, I'm always studying, and I'm always experimenting. I'm working hard these days to try to give people beats they can listen to, try to give people lyrics they can enjoy reading and that they can relate to, and then try to give them that flow that they would feel like when they hear the song, they just want to just keep moving their heads to, bobbing their heads to, or dance to. So I would say that what I represent as 9 zeros, what 9 zeros represents is I feel that I try to represent what I think is the best of different things, and I try to represent what I think the future of music should be. So yeah.
You gonna give any shout outs or?
I mean, I could go down the list of names, but every one of y'all know who you are. Y'all been in my corner, even when I was on a break. So I appreciate y'all for holding me down throughout this time, especially Brandon holding me down all this time. And yeah, so I just want to say thank you for that. As far as social medias, I am on a lot of the main social medias. So Instagram at 9zeros, Facebook at 9zeros, YouTube 9zeros. You could search me up, find me on there. So you can find me on digital stores as well: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Amazon Music. So you can find me on a bunch of distribution platforms as 9zeros. So and you will find different digital singles and upcoming releases that I'll be putting on there. SoundCloud as well at 9zeros. So basically, you search 9zeros, you're gonna find me eventually. So yeah. So yep. So I think that answers that one.
Well, 9zeros. I appreciate you taking your time out in your busy schedule to get this interview. I thank you, and I'm hoping to look forward of what you're doing in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for for coming through and doing this interview. Okay, and before we finish, I also have to do this. So before we finish, I have to shout out our villainous video contest. Okay, so for the villainous video contest, so for the month of July, we're gonna be having a video contest. So ladies only. So have your mouth mask and just make at least a video that's at least 1 minute. Just vibe to the song, bounce, dance to it, etc. And the best entry will be getting cash reward plus a custom mouth mask as well.
This is 9zeros, Mola Mo Fortune, and we're signing off.